that, trying to learn the technique of certain things and be knowledgeable about what you're doing. Also have a unique sense of freedom to do whatever you want to do, because back then you did not have any dancing police telling you like, oh, you have to do it this way, that way. Like you said, it was kids, so they're like, you know what, I'm influenced by this, I'm going to do something that's based on, I don't know, speed racing. And then they're going to do something related to that, you know, so aesthetic. That's it. I'm going to let you know for aesthetic.
Cool. Yeah, like anyone want to know more? That's enough for you. Yeah? Sam.
So I have questions somewhat related to culture and how, I mean, popping started with Black people, but then it went to different kinds of communities as well. For example, in San Jose there are Samoans, there are Mexicans, and they have their own expression of it. So when popping goes to other, when popping spread to other countries, and I feel like that there are many parts of the culture that haven't come with it, and maybe some of it should, maybe some of it hasn't. For example, I feel like with another dance like b-boying, they brought the crew battle culture kind of with them, like everywhere it goes, and that's cool. I like it, and I feel like there are some elements of popping in the U.S. that at the same time that are kind of I'm really bad at phrasing this. Let me restart. What? So there's a lot of culture that comes around popping, right? There's gang culture, crew culture, everything culture, and not all of them necessarily apply to some another society, say Singapore or Japan or Korea. So at the same time, I feel like that the dance should also come with some culture. But how do you kind of pick and choose what you should take and localize, and what's not appropriate? For example, something I feel two ways about is the culture of, say, calling people out. Right? That's something pretty normal in the States. It doesn't even have to be viewed as a negative thing. But over here in Asia, people are generally less confrontational. There are social consequences to doing something like that, and that's something that's not done here. And some people will say, oh, this is all watered down. People are all competition these days, whatever. But I kind of feel like, oh, this doesn't really work with the culture here. So that's just one example. So how can we stay true to the dance and its culture while still localizing it, to some other very different culture? That's what I'm saying. What do you guys think of that?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Just adding on to what he's like, because after all, like all these dance styles is sort of like imported. Like Singapore, we don't have this kind of social dancing, or it's not strong. Like that's not how we enjoy ourselves here. So it's an imported culture. So don't know how to bring that vibe from the other side over here, because it's different. Because from young, we are the kind that are told to like hey, you cannot move, stop dancing. There's music. When music comes on, you're like, no, don't move. Yeah, so that's our culture, in some way. So yeah.
I have a question that I want to add on, as in based on Sam and Ronald's point, but at the same time I have a response which just came out in my mind. So my question basically was this, because Monster Pop just mentioned that to him, what defines a separates popping from everything else is the illusionary aspect. It's the unrealness, if I may say. And he also said that it's the aesthetic difference, right? What you see with your eyes. But I'm wondering whether there's something more spiritual or more cultural that's below the skin that separates popping dancers or popping style from other dance styles. And with regard to what Sam and Ronald just asked, my gut response to that is that there is no fixed answer as to what or how popping should evolve in other places, other lands. And that is the beauty of art, because you don't direct it, you let it evolve organically on its own. So For example, like asking somebody from Canada or Japan about how the dance should evolve in Singapore might not make sense. They can share how the dance evolved in their place. But for us, I think it's not a decision that's to be made individually, it's to be made subconsciously as a community together. And I think that will tie into something that I want to share later on. So.
That's why you have to represent the way you want it to be. Yeah. I think.
I agree, perfectly agree. Yeah, I think, but you gotta choose what you want to represent, but it is still a decision that is made as a community because you want your community style to come out. Yeah, so it can't be decided by one person, I think.
Yeah, so that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff, which is all good. We touched on tradition, the idea of tradition versus innovation, and incorporating something that's not necessarily a part of your culture into what you do here. And then you were talking about the idea of, other than the aesthetic, what connects these dances. And I think that's what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the personalities of the people. But not only that, but the personality of the music. So that's another thing. And it's not limited to one feeling or one character or one personality, because whatever the music says, you have to be that as well. So the music can connect the style. When we talk about funk, when P-Funk came in, the sounds changed and the snares became really hard and people started stopping harder on these sounds. The music called for the movement. Because of the music, the aesthetic came. So it comes from, popping is the aesthetic, but it's also the personality of the music underneath and the way that the music makes you feel. So that's another element to that thing. As far as community building, Sam, so I'm clearly a white guy from the States. So is Bryce. Let's not forget. So I'm learning a black dance, okay? I didn't grow up like Rashad, like a lot of my crewmates with black culture. Rashad grew up listening to that music all the time. His parents played it. They danced at barbecues. They went to like, they ciphered already at barbecues, you know? It was all about like, oh, look, little whoever's getting down, do your thing, you know? And people would just dance, and that's a part of their culture, music and dance. And that wasn't how I grew up. But what I made sure to do as someone outside of a culture coming into it and learning that culture is I tried to approach it in the most respectful way as I could. And that meant that I had to learn their traditions. You know, when you go to like a Native American tribe or you go somewhere, when we come here, like I have to listen to your guys' customs and I have to be aware that, you know, certain things will get you lashings, right? So like, I can't just come here and do whatever I want. And my point is that same respect for the black American culture and these dances needs to be there. And guys like yourself and Marcus and the people that have been to these places have to be an example. They have to come back and they have to not tell people that you have to do it like this, but they have to tell people here, there's more than what we're doing here. You know, and this is how they approach it in the States. This is how it was originally done. This is the variations of those things. And we can incorporate that into what we do here, you know, to make us better, even if those are our weaknesses. If people are shy here and they don't want to cipher, if they don't understand cipher culture, it's still important to push people to come out of their comfort zones and to understand things that maybe they don't, because usually when you come out of your comfort zone, that's when the growth happens. Right? That's when you grow, okay? So not only that, but you have to innovate. You have to be, Singapore has to have its own popping style, for sure. Every country should, because every country's culture is different. Even the cities within the countries are slightly different. You know, you guys might have a certain accent here that someone has a different accent when they speak in a different part of the country. So it's really important to, one, be yourself, but it's just as equally as important to carry on tradition. Okay, that's what these dances are. They're traditional dances in the States. So it's really important to have a balance of both and to be an example of that thing, you know. That's why, you know, me and Marcus were talking. I'm really glad that he's doing this event and we're talking about these things, because he's trying to bring his experiences that he's gained in the States back home. And it's not for him, it's for everybody to grow. So I think it's a balancing act of those two things for me.
Cool. Thank you.
Kind of said it all, sorry.
Not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, well, getting back to the questions of how you differentiate like popping and other dancing, and I'm still at a stage, still trying to learn what popping is, and you know, trying to dig deeper and deeper and understand your culture and everything. But one thing that I personally noticed, is that it's composed of many things that it's really hard to explain in words. It's probably better to be able to explain in words, but it's not only about, you know, things that you could express in words. So it's really difficult right now for me to say it's a list of these. But one thing that might make it possible to easier for you guys to understand is that to go try to learn what the history, the root of it, and you'll kind of notice, this is my experience, but you kind of notice a really common, you know, thing about those different cultures.